it going, Charger fans? Welcome back to another injury update on the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Jamieson O'Marr, at Chargers Medical on Twitter. You can follow me there for all updates more in real time about Chargers-related injuries and things like that. This is our Week 18 update, so our final regular season game. We're going to do something a little bit different today. The main focus will be on Rashawn Slater and discussing some of the exciting news that has come out over the last week about him and his recovery, and the most important question that we're all here to find out: when we could potentially see him back on the field. We've had some exciting reporting come out from our very own Tyler Schoon and others about sort of the status and the expectations for Rashawn Slater. So we'll get into that, and that'll be the bulk of the discussion today, in addition to the normal roundup of the injuries for the Chargers and looking at our banged up score, which thankfully the Chargers are slowly climbing up the list after spending most of the season near the bottom. But before any of that, I'd be remiss not to discuss a little bit about the injury, the very scary injury that we witnessed on Monday, and say that our thoughts are still with Damar Hamlin and his family, the whole Bills organization, and the Bengals organizations that witnessed what was perhaps one of the scariest events that we've seen on a football field for a very long time. Before I go any further, I just want to say that our thoughts are still with Damar Hamlin. If you're interested in supporting his GoFundMe, that's reached close to 8 million. It might not even be 8 million by the time this video is posted online. This is a link that you could use to go support that GoFundMe, and those donations will go help support him and his community work. Originally, it was scheduled, I think it was set at $2,500 was the goal to be raised for a toy drive, and obviously it's blown past that by leaps and bounds. But by all accounts, Damar Hamlin is a community man and has been invested in helping him. And we're all thankful. And I will talk a little bit about some of the updates that we received that's bringing kind of a lightness back to our hearts from him. But if you're interested in supporting Damar Hamlin and supporting some of the work that he does, and as he continues to recover, please do go visit this link if you're able. We've received a lot of really good updates today. So as of about 5 p.m. on Friday afternoon, he had been extubated, and we got some really reassuring updates that he was actually able to FaceTime members of the Bills organization today. I believe he also was reported to have sent a message to the entire team, which I can only imagine is a huge weight lifted off those team shoulders as they continue to prepare to play another game of football this weekend after what they witnessed. But I just want to say that, we're not out of the woods yet. These are obviously amazing developments, and we want to continue to support him, and he will have a long road to recovery. But it is really, really reassuring to see the positive medical progress that's being made by Damar, and can only speak to his level of resiliency and the level of treatment that he received by the emergency medical personnel at the stadium, as well as the doctors and nurses and care professionals in Cincinnati. I did want to also talk a little bit about what's called the emergency action plan that the NFL has. So this is a plan that is instituted at every game that is played in the NFL, and it includes medical professionals from the home team, from the visiting team, and also a full cadre of medical professionals from the stadium as well. And these are a huge team, as you can see, up to 27 medical professionals whose sole job is to protect these players as they're playing what is a incredibly dangerous sport at times, as we all witnessed on Monday. And it takes a lot of work to coordinate those people. And this is something that's done, across the country every single weekend when these games are played. But there was a recent development in the last over the offseason where one of the medical professionals in the NFL actually was working at Wembley Stadium in London and was discussing some of the recent cardiac arrests that have occurred in soccer. So as the most notable of which being Christian Eriksen a few years ago, who actually suffered a cardiac arrest during a soccer game, was able to be resuscitated and has now returned back to playing soccer at the professional level, which is an amazing feat. But that level of coordination is key. And those discussions that he had over there actually instituted a new rule that the NFL instituted this year. So before every match, 60 minutes before the game kicks off, all these medical professionals meet to exchange names, make sure everyone's on the same page about who's going to be a leader. And before this offseason, they instituted a new rule to actually identify a code leader. So in the instance that somebody suffers a cardiac arrest, they would be one person who's in charge of running that whole operation and assigning roles to different people to make sure that that runs as smoothly and as quickly as possible. And obviously the hope is that that will never have to be done. But as we saw on Monday, unfortunately, these things do very rarely occur. And it is, I just want to say a big thank you and a big shout out of respect to those medical professionals across the country who are there and prepared to take these steps every week if necessary. And without their quick and decisive action and this saga that we started on Monday and this very unfortunate injury that happened to Damar Hamlin, could have had a more or much worse outcome. So I just want to take a moment to pay our respects to those medical professionals who have been involved in this care, and also give you the viewers a little bit more of an idea of how much goes into these preparations on a week-to-week basis. And of course, our thoughts are continuing to be with Damar Hamlin as he hopefully continues to take positive steps in his recovery. But without further ado, now that that's out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the Chargers and what we can expect in the Week 18. So this is the injury report for the week. As you can see, the only person who's listed as questionable is Xander Horvath with that ankle injury he picked up 2 weeks ago. But everyone else was full participants on Friday and does not have an injury designation going into the game on Sunday. It will obviously remain to be seen which players play a majority of those snaps. That there's a lot of things that might affect whether that happens. And if you're interested about what types of things might influence those decisions about which players are playing, I encourage you to go watch the Guilty as Charged breakdown from Thursday, where they discussed a lot of those scenarios. But this is all to say that this is the healthiest this Chargers team has been all season, and they're getting healthy at the right time. Which is, something that they had to fight through to get to where they are. And they're fortunately in a position where they could clinch the top wild card seed and have a game against either the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Tennessee Titans come next week in wild card weekend. So it's an amazing feat to be able to have done this. And it speaks a testament to the organization, not only the medical staff, but the resiliency of this team to keep pushing through and have a next man up mentality. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the Broncos. Unfortunately, their injury list is quite long. They have a lot of players who are either out or questionable. They've had quite a season. We'll have a lot of questions moving forward. But this is what we want to see from the Chargers getting healthier towards the postseason. So the moment we've all been waiting for, let's talk a little bit about Rashawn Slater again. So I won't belabor this point too much, as we've discussed this several times over the course of the year of his injury specifically, but he did suffer a biceps tendon rupture. He had it surgically repaired. And we talked a little bit in previous episodes about what the expectation was for him to return. And the expectation is that when he returns, regardless of timeline, he shouldn't have any effect to his overall performance. It's not going to shorten his career. It's not going to, affect his level of play. And the data surrounding this injury supports that hypothesis about this is what we should expect to full Rashawn Slater to come back when he's ready. The question then becomes, when can these players be ready? Traditionally, a lot of data says it's a season-ending injury, but because of the timeline of this injury, it usually is, because unless you have suffered this injury really early, Rashawn Slater again suffered this injury in week 3, it is usually a season-ending injury. But let's talk a little bit about sort of what's transpired from there. So it's been approximately 16 weeks since that week 3 game that Rashawn Slater suffered the injury, about 15 weeks since he had the surgery performed. And so that's 15 weeks of recovery time that Rashawn Slater has had to rehab, let that tendon kind of really reintegrate into the bone and kind of allow that tissue to scar down, and also give him time to rehab and get up to a level that's capable of being played. So the normal window for this is about 3 months. It's like a very quick recovery timeline. Again, 12 weeks. We're getting close to 4 months, which has been, a testament to the fact that the Chargers and Jamari Sawyer have been doing, a good enough job holding down that left tackle spot that they didn't need to rush him back. And now the question becomes, will he be able to return for that wildcard weekend spot? And I think there's a good chance that we see that. So let's talk about why I think that. We know that Rashawn Slater is back in the Chargers facility. He's back training with the team, going to team meetings, doing those types of things, trying to reintegrate it again into the football mentality and the football shape. He's likely also undergoing various medical evaluations, testing the strength, testing his mobility in that upper extremity to make sure that he's able to perform at a high level when he comes back. Those are all things that he's going to have to pass in this next week. But the fact that he's been in the facility, at least for the last week, likely means that he's been undergoing evaluations, and there's been active discussions among the Chargers staff. And the reason I have the eye emojis here is we have some reporting that there is a good chance that we do see Rashawn Slater at least able to return in that wildcard weekend matchup. He's very close. He's on that cusp. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that we do see him return, but I think given his age, he's a younger player, fresh out of college. They tend to heal quicker than older players and older individuals. We had positive updates from Duke Mayweather, where we know he did some amount of rehab and training during that over the course of the season. And we know he now is back with the team and at least trying to reintegrate into the team culture and the team mentality and getting back up to speed with the play calls and all those things that he will need before he starts. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee that we see Rashawn Slater next week, but from a medical perspective, he's certainly in that window where he's on the cusp of being able to return. And there is a definite possibility that he is able to from a medical standpoint, be cleared and play in that wild card weekend hopefully against either the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Tennessee Titans. That remains to be seen. It also could be that they might give him an extra week of rest depending on the wild card round opponent and save him for the divisional round if they're not confident that he's able to return to that high level immediately. Jamari Sawyer has played admirably at that left tackle spot. So there are a lot of game time decisions in terms of actual level of play that will have to go into this context, but by all accounts, Rashawn Slater has been, working as hard. And I think we've all saw that over the course of his rookie season to get back to a level that he could play. Again, this was called a season-ending injury when it happened in week 3. And by all previous accounts, it usually is a season injury. So it's a testament to his work ethic and his ability to kind of rehab this. The fact that he has even an outside chance to play this upcoming wildcard weekend. So and for future updates, I think next week's practice report will be critically important. So if he's going to come back from IR, we're going to need to see him at least get some snaps in practice next week and see him back on the field in some capacity. So keep an eye out around Wednesday. We might get updates Monday when Staley speaks to the media. We might hear something about him saying they're planning to see him on the practice field or they're planning to activate him. But it is entirely possible, like Joey Bosa, we don't hear anything on Monday or hear, nothing, or they kind of dodge the question. And then we do see him back on the practice field on Wednesday to be activated from IR. So keep an eye out early next week after this game to see that's when we should expect to hear a little bit more about whether we will see him for this wildcard weekend or not. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a little something today about Rashawn Slater and when we can see him back and why we at the Guilty as Charged podcast have some thoughts about, this is trending in a very positive direction. So hopefully we do see him at wildcard weekend. Again, the job that he did last year as a rookie left tackle on the left side of the line, holding it down the way he did. He's an elite player and something, certainly the Chargers wouldn't be where they are without him there. And I just want to finish here. Again, this is the BUS score. I've talked a little bit about how this has changed over the course of the season, but now you can see that the Chargers are number 27 after spending most of, if not the entire season, down there at 32. So again, they've still suffered some very serious injuries. There's no J.C. Jackson. Their defensive line, and they've lost a lot of key starters there. Players all over the field, including Jalen Guyton on offense, like a lot of speed and things like that. So the Chargers have weathered these and have won games, and it hasn't always been pretty. But again, as we talked about in my last video, the best teams are able to weather these injuries and still perform at a high level. We've seen that with the Chargers organization over the last few weeks. And so all we can do is trust in the coaching staff and continue to support them as they go forward and trust that with the veteran leadership that they have, they're able to perform at that high level and keep performing at that high level. And by all accounts, they're peaking at the right time. So thank you for tuning in to another Los Angeles Chargers injury update. Again, my name is Jamieson O'Marr at Chargers Medical on Twitter. Hit me up with any questions that you guys have. Feel free to tag me and things like that, and I'll try to answer any injury-related questions as they come up. But again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll hopefully see you for some playoff-related injury updates in the near future. Have a good one.